Good morning, viewer. Welcome to our Fosak TV USA. Here's a breaking news from Japan. Human-induced climate crisis is making Japan's cherry blossoms bloom earlier. Every spring, crowds flock to admire Japan's cherry blossoms, a dazzling pink and white bloom that has been revered in the country for more than 1,000 years. But the world famous sakura plants are flowering much earlier than normal due to human induced climate change, a new study has found. Researchers from the Met Office in the United Kingdoms and Osaka Metropolitan University in Japan say the climate crisis and urban warming have pushed forward the peak bloom flowering period by 11 days. In 2021, cherry blossoms in the historic central city of Kyoto peaked on March 26, the earliest full flowering date in 1200 years. This year, the cherry blossoms burst into color on April 1. The scientists who published their findings in the journal Environmental Research Letters on May 20 said the extreme early flowering of the cherry blossoms is now more common. The trend of the earlier peak blooms coincides with a rising temperature. Average March temperature in Kyoto city center have increased by several degrees since pre-industrial times. Under the influence of both climate change and urban warming, the scientist observes part of the reason is increased urbanization. Cities tend to be warmer than surroundings rural areas because buildings and roads absorb the sun's heat more than natural landscapes, a phenomena known as the heat Iceland effect. But scientists say a bigger reason is the climate crisis in which the burning of fossil fuels has caused rising temperature across the region of the world. If planet warming if planet warming greenhouse gas emissions continue as they are, by the end of the century, Kyoto's cherry blossoms could start arriving even earlier by almost another week, the study found. Our research shows that not only have human-induced climate change and urban warming already impacted the flowering dates of cherry blossoms in Kyoto, but that extremely early flowering dates, as in 2021, now estimated to be 15 times more likely and are expected to occur at least once a century, said lead author and Met Office climate scientist Dr. Nikos Christodoulos. Such events are projected to occur every few years by 2100, when they would no longer to be considered extreme. Earlier, cherry blossoms have wider ramifications for Japan's economy and ecology and are a symptoms of the larger climate crisis threatening ecosystems everywhere. Spring cherry blossoms flowering is a culturally significant event in Japan, said contributing author Yasuku Ono from Osaka Metropolitan University. Spring festivals that accompany the blossoms are an important contributor to the local economy, so being able to predict the bloom's timing can be critical. The peak bloom period lasts just a few days. During the period, Hanami, Japanese for flower viewing, is a popular activity. It is a common for locals and tourists alike to have picnics under the cherry trees, and businesses will sometimes offer special set meals or products during the week. But it is not just a matter of tourists scrambling to catch peak bloom before the petals all fall. It could have a lasting impact on entire ecosystems and threaten the survival of many species. The impact of rising temperature on nature's calendar has trickle-down effects on farming and land management practices in the country, the study said. It also impacts plants, insects, and animals which rely heavily on each other for their development and life cycles. A change to this cycle can initiate a chain reaction causing damage of ecosystem. For instance, plants sense the temperature around them, and if it is warm enough for a consistent period, they start to flower and their leaves start to emerge. Similarly, higher heat can cause faster growth in insects and other animals. Different plants and insects may respond to the rise in heat at different paces, throwing their life cycles out of a synchronized, whereas they once timed their growth simultaneously each spring. Not flowers may bloom before insects are ready, and vice versa, meaning there may not be enough food for the insect or planet or plants. The change in flowering dates is not limited to Japan for to cherry blossom. This year spring came earlier in parts of the United Kingdom, and climate change is making plants across the British Isles flower on average a month earlier than they used to, according to a recent study. The same phenomena is already happening to many crops and economically valuable plants, posing big problems for food security and farmer livelihood. So please beware, beware, beware. Behind the report for Active USA.